It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 131, The Sensorites.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Debbie?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person, you see.
The resulting reaction is Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your tri-weekly classic Doctor Who review podcast. I'm coming back right at you, right in your face as usual. My name is Eric. I'm joined, as always, by the charming, the fanciful, the golden tones?
Sure.
The golden tongue.
How did you know my name from high school?
I don't know.
It's Dan, everybody.
It's Dan. We
everyone.
are back after... Not 3 weeks, after 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
We had a 7-year podcast.
Yep.
Which is also my favorite Faye Dunaway movie. No, the 7-year podcast that we've had. We never missed an episode until last week when life was just all over the place. I know I was extremely busy. I was going to meetings in different places, and I can't even remember. The whole thing was a blur. I know you were busy, right?
Yeah, drug-fueled haze.
Yep.
I still haven't come down yet.
Dan's also a drug runner, which a lot of people don't know. Commonly called a mule.
Right.
And that stuff, and you have to, that stuff's got to come out. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? You make one handshake deal with a sketchy guy in a back alley. Next thing you know, for the next 5 years, you're running down to Tijuana for
Dan's
vacation.
going to these high-priced hotels, meeting these very charming men in bars, and before you know it, they're sticking things in his bags, and now he's in prison for 30 years.
Glad you said bags. I'm so glad you said bags. There were other options there that would have been worse.
Hey, Dan, I have AC problems. Well, as we know, this podcast is also a slash DIY home trouble podcast. We've heard about my battle against the ants. Let's just say...
I would really love this to become a Bob Vila competitor.
Sure.
A podcast version of This Old House. Maybe a Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers car talk, but for idiots who don't know what they're doing with their house.
I don't think anyone knows what they're doing with their house. When you get a house, and I guess it applies to an apartment too, nobody tells you what anything is. You just got to figure it out. Like, thank God for YouTube and the internet. Like, I got pipes coming out of my house. I don't know what that thing is. Nobody tells you about AC drain lines.
Here's the little-known secret, though.
Oh, what is the secret?
Half of those pipes don't do anything. They're just decoy pipes.
They're decoy pipes to fool the ants. But yeah. An update. I beat the ants. I had an Empire. I had a Return of the Jedi. The Empire has fallen. I stopped the whole line of that massive colony that was coming in. We were going back and forth. Eric. They're all gone, and now I got a First Order situation. On the other side of the house, there's some other colony. I just caught a handful of ants going up, so I don't know what's going on. It's too much. But that's not my immediate problem. My immediate problem is if you're outside your house and you look up under your roof and you got a little PVC pipe coming out and then water's coming out of it, you're like me and you're like, that seems weird. Do you know what that means, Dan?
Was it raining?
No,
Let's start with the
it's
obvious.
not raining at all.
Good.
You have to figure out what that is, and you're like, oh, that turns out that's a secondary AC drain, which tells you your primary is clogged, and if you don't fix it immediately, your whole house is going to flood.
Yeah.
Things are going to get broken and destroyed. So now I'm in the process of figuring out how to drain the primary AC drain pipe, but I got pipes coming out of my house left and right. This one, maybe that's for the furnace. maybe this one's for, I don't know what it, and I'm supposed to hook a wet dry vac up to the end of this thing and run it and hope for the best.
You're gonna have to one by one suck every pipe until you figure out the right one. I mean, it's a real Goldilocks story.
Now I texted Dan, our friend, yours
me.
and mine, and maybe he would know. And he comes from a long history, a long line of AC HVAC people. It's a family affair.
Family
Dan's got nothing to help me.
Nothing. Family business dating back to my grandfather. My dad ran an HVAC and plumbing business for 50 years. Do I know anything about it? Not a damn thing.
Oh, God.
You've heard the old adage, the cobbler's kids go barefoot? That's me. I'm barefoot, just sweltering in the heat because I don't know how to
So
turn
I was
on
very
my AC.
close. Well, that's the thing. I don't know anyone who's ever told me they've drained their AC pipe, not without me paying a little extra. That's like, how do you
It's not
even
on the
know to
menu.
do that?
You have to know to ask for it.
Nobody tells you what this stuff is. You just have to figure it out or call. I'm not going to call someone and spend hundreds of dollars.
Well,
So now it's just a
and they may
ticking
not be able to
clock
come
and
because
YouTube.
it's a holiday weekend. It's America's birthday this weekend, so who knows if they're going to be able to come.
Hat tip to you, America. Thanks for
Good job, America.
destroying yourself. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the Supreme Court, are we?
We're not going to talk about the murder-suicide pact that is the Supreme Court. All right.
Things are not good.
They're not the best, anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, no, we're here to talk about Doctor Who, unless you have any other thing to do. And hey, if you're listening to this now, somehow, of course, it's Wednesday when you're hearing this, and so hopefully I have solved the problem. But if you are an HVAC master and you want to reach out to me on the side, I'll figure out something
hobbyist. Anyway.
Yeah, or a hobbyist, or just someone that's... Because I got pipes coming out, and I'm like, this pipe is probably the exhaust intake for, like, the heater, right? That sounds like I know what I'm talking about.
Sounds like a thing,
That's
but
what
I
it
don't
seems.
think that's right.
And I have 2 units too, so I have a unit for the downstairs, unit for the upstairs. So now it's more pipes.
Oh, well,
Do they all have their
just
own?
bragging. Oh,
Do they
I
all
an
have their
upstairs
own
and a downstairs. Look
Yeah,
at you.
but did they?
Look,
No, but did
I
they
think you
have
can
their
multiple
own,
rooms.
Dan? Dan, someone is listening to this right now, and they know the answer, and you're talking over them. And I gotta listen real hard.
Rich, everyone, listen for the answer. I can't quite hear it.
So anyway, Stranger Things just wrapped. No. What do we got? You got anything?
You want to talk
Should we
about Stranger Things? Let's talk about Stranger Things.
I enjoyed Stranger Things for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything. This isn't a spoiler. So I just watched the last the 2 movies or whatever that ended the season. Sorry for that mic noise. I don't like when things happen like perfectly timed. Like they,
whole thing is just...
so much of it is that characters just ending up exactly where they need to be at the moment that's there without any real choice or autonomy. Like they're on rails.
One or two, two groups happened to get. It was like 4 disparate groups, all did the exact thing they needed to at the exact right time,
and then people showing up in the same place at the perfect moment.
Stuff like that will happen in like a Stephen King novel, and that's very obviously huge inspiration for Stranger Things. I think they originally said it's like a long lost Stephen King novel directed by Steven Spielberg that never happened. Like that was their concept for this, and that happens, but there's usually like an explanation. It's Mother Abigail in The Stand who's directing people and helping them get together. Like there was none of that. It just kind of.
I've never read The Stand, but did you just spoil it? Now I'm never going to read The Stand again.
You don't need to. Read.
Okay.
It's very Deus Ex Machina for no
yes.
good reason, but still,
it was enjoyable though.
Absolutely enjoyable.
And we all are enjoying the Kate Bush resurgence, right?
I cannot get the song out of my head.
Yeah, it is
so
a very
good.
very catchy song. I was trying to think like what it was. Wasn't it also in a previous movie from the 80s or something? I know she's like doesn't okay the rights to her music often, if at all. But when it first appeared in Stranger Things, I was like, oh, didn't some other film use that
no,
song?
I will tell you where I know the
like
intro
some 80s,
from.
80s.
That dissonant, that opening part.
Yeah.
That was the outro, I believe, to an old radio show on Air America Radio back in the
Wait, is
early
that
aughts.
Minority
It was
Report?
It was
or
Majority Report.
Majority Report.
Yep. That's where I know it from. I didn't actually know that it was a Kate Bush song. I didn't know where it was coming from. I believe that was the outro from Majority Report. That's why I know it. But no, it's a.
They also used Radiohead. I remember they had, I forget what Radiohead song. One of those Air America shows had that as their outro.
Air
or
America
intro.
Radio. Boy, are we talking niche
Yeah.
now? No
Hey,
one.
everybody loves Mark
we're
Maron.
talking.
I was a huge fan of Mark
too.
Maron as a stand-up comic in the '80s, watching Comic Strip
Absolutely.
Live and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And then he went on to
Short attention span
Air
theater
America.
for a little bit. I think he did
Yeah.
that one. Rachel Maddow came from that, which is she's my girlfriend now.
Sam
She doesn't know
Cedar.
it.
Everybody loves Sam Cedar, right?
Do they?
I hope so.
I still love him, but no.
Anyway, we're not
Al
here to
Franken
talk
became
about
senator
Air America
because
for nobody
Wait, this is the Air
cares.
America fan show podcast.
Nobody
15 years later.
And you know what? It was like,
Where
hey,
aren't they
there's
now?
a lot of conservative media. We're going to put some liberal media out here. We're going to balance the scales, and everything's going to work out. And it didn't work out that way at all. In fact, every election went south, and the station's gone.
We're going to put together this liberal counterpoint to the right-wing radio, but we're going to fund it with really dodgy sources who's going to take the whole thing down because of their scams, which is fine. That's fine.
Hey, but the Sensorites, yeah, let's get into
Oh,
Sensorites.
let's-
We're not. There's too much
Sensorites.
stuff to talk about.
Is there?
Seriously though, I got to fix this everything because the whole time I'm going to be talking about Sensorites. You know, your humble host and narrator here is worrying that he's going to start feeling drips from the ceiling because there's a drain pan, folks. I don't know where that is. I don't know where that is. I got to go
But
find
the
that.
secondary one is draining right now. It's doing its job.
Oh, it's doing
So,
something.
you're
Definitely. Yeah.
You're
Okay.
I would ignore it until the ceiling kicks in. That's the typical advice that an HVAC professional would tell you.
Speaking of professionals, let's talk about
Oh.
Sensorites. Is that a good segue?
think
I don't know. Do you have
that's
anything else?
solid.
Do we have anything
No, I
else?
just want. Nope.
What else happened? It was 4 weeks. We got nothing. Nothing happened.
I don't. It's fine.
I watched
mean,
Obi-Wan. Didn't I already talk about that? I don't even know. I don't know.
Really? Was
I
it good?
don't.
I watched it, but was it good?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, I would say. Listen, I'll tell you this. I
mean,
watched
it was no solo movie.
I watched it, and then I was like, oh yeah, Hayden Christensen. Ah, that makes me think of Shattered Glass. I love that movie. That's a great movie. Do you know what movie that is? The Stephen Glass. You know who Stephen Glass is?
The composer?
No, not Stephen. Well,
That's Philip.
that's
Glass.
Philip Glass. Stephen Glass. I was right the first time. He was a writer for the National Review, among other pop, and he made up a whole bunch of stuff. It's a true story, and they made a movie about that with Hayden
Starring
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
And he's great in it. And it's one of those movies. There's certain movies that are like will put you in a you can watch them every time they're on. They're almost like have a sedative. They're like a sedative, like a visual audio sedative, and just put you in a relaxed place. That's one of the movies for me. I'm a fan of that movie.
I wonder. That's interesting. I've never seen Hayden Christensen in another role.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that
I would recommend
if
you
liked
watch
him,
it.
If you liked him in that, then it just bolsters my theory that George Lucas doesn't know how to direct actors, and that's why.
I think
so
that's probably
horrible.
true. I think that's
Horrible.
probably true.
Natalie Portman, great actress. She does
Not great in
amazing
that.
work. Terrible in every one of those movies. He cannot direct actors. Anyway, so is that all we want to talk about today? We good?
I don't know. I just lost
All right.
any chance of working on a Star Wars property. So thanks for that, Dan. No, that's all we want to talk about. We don't have anything else. What if we just keep doing this and then I keep saying we're going to talk about the Sensorites, we got nothing
we
else to
just
talk about, and
don't?
then we talk about something else like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, let's talk
Or,
about Lord of the
yeah.
Rings.
I have no desire to see. I feel like this is a retread,
Sure.
but I have no desire to see the Amazon show. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I read all of
I
the
didn't
Lord of
know
the
there
Rings
was-
books in high
Wait,
school.
there's an Amazon show?
The are you kidding?
No, I'm not. I have no idea.
Oh, that's even worse. They spent like billions of dollars. It's the most expensive show ever made. It's called Rings of Power, I believe.
Oh, right.
That's coming,
Right.
but they released a trailer, and it's just
That's
like,
right.
what is this? Right? It just
Or more
it's
importantly,
just a
why
waste
is
of
this?
money. Why is this? What is this? Like, It doesn't seem like, at least in the trailer, that there is a story. Like, it's just a giant billion-dollar company throwing billions of dollars at something because they want the IP, and it's not. Prediction here. This is it.
You heard it here first.
It's gonna get canceled. That's my prediction. Right?
Well,
I mean, I guess
that-
at some point you put so much money into something, you won't let it get canceled. So maybe they would
sunk
automatically
costs,
give
yeah.
it 2 seasons. But nobody's going to care about it.
No.
Right.
It feels the same way as the cash grab for...
It just feels soulless.
yes, but like the Jon Snow series that's going to come after Game of
exactly.
Thrones. Like, that's been announced. And there's the prequel that takes place way back in the whatever. And they're going to do all these things. It's like, yeah, it's no one...
Who cares?
No one cares anymore.
Nobody
No one cares. George R. R. Martin doesn't care. He's still not going to bother.
He's still
to
not
finish
done
the
with
book.
that. His new book.
He's never. No. Instead, he wrote the
result?
story for Elden Ring, the video game, that I can't tell if it even has a story, to be honest. So, I don't know,
Anyway,
man.
we're not here to talk about George R. R. Martin and his cute little hat. He's a little adorable
We're
little
here
scamp.
to talk about Goblin. So, folks,
Yes, I was gonna say actually, George R. R. Martin. We were here to talk about how he wrote into like the Fantastic Four, and you can find his little fan letter in an early issue of Fantastic Four, which I thought was very cool. No, yeah, we're here to talk about Goblin. It's available now. It is $15 US. You can get it overseas as well. So our UK fans, you can go to a bookstore near you that should be able to order it. You can get it on your Amazon.co.uk. We just talked about them. They got to pay for that Rings of Power. Rings of Power, even like the title is generic.
Yeah,
Right?
It feels very like, okay.
It sounds like a
let's just call
toy,
this-
like Rings of
Let's
Power.
call it Rings of Power for now. We'll circle back before
Right,
we
TBD was
release.
just there, like
Yeah.
just cross out the TBD part. We're going with Rings of Power. No, it's an action adventure, highly inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien, certainly. My love of The Hobbit, all of that stuff, pour it into there. Hook us up, hook me and Will up. You could go out and you get yourself the book, get yourself a copy for your friends. And if you like it, maybe it's a world I will return to. We shall see. We shall see.
Maybe with a big budget Amazon Prime series.
Hey, man, I'll take that. As I'm trashing Amazon one hand, I'll be taking that money and putting it in my pocket in the other so I could pay
Absolutely.
someone to come here and fix these freaking pipes.
Right. So, folks,
no, I would
you need
just-
to buy Goblin so Eric doesn't die of both heat exhaustion and drowning.
Yeah, and I'm tired of maintaining a house. It's
And
too much
he's
for
also
me.
looking for someone to buy a house from him.
I'm looking for a sugar daddy.
gently.
Take care of me. All right, so why don't we hit that button? On that note, hit that button.
Okay.
Let's go to our special place and talk about this so I can get to fixing this. The Senssphere. Oh, I got a lot to talk about with this particular shark. Okay,
cool.
Let's hit that button. Whoop. Hey, I didn't talk about the Elvis movie. We could have talked about that. Not that I
haven't
saw
seen
it.
it and I don't care to.
Okay.
This says everything has stopped but the ship.
What did you mean, Barbara, inside something?
Perhaps that's why we still appear to be moving.
About the scanner, Doctor.
Covered with static. Let's try it again, Susan.
That could be caused by an unsuppressed motor.
Yes, or a magnetic field.
Shall we go outside, Grandfather?
No, I shan't be happy until I've solved this little mystery.
I don't know why we ever bothered to leave the ship.
You're still thinking about the experiences you had with the Aztecs.
No, I've got over that now.
There's one thing about it, Doctor. We're certainly different from when we started out with you.
That's funny. Grandfather and I were talking about that just before you came in. How you both changed. Oh, we've all changed. Have I? Yes.
Yes, it all started out as a mild curiosity in the junkyard. Now it's turned out to be quite a great spirit of adventure, don't you think?
This is the Sensorites.
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. Yeah, this is the Sensorites. This is the 7th story from
Final story.
season number season number one. Dan, it was one. This is written by Peter Newman, and directed by Marvin Pinfield and Frank Cox. When you need it done on time, set your clocks to Cox. This guy's gonna bang it out. This was from Lucky season 1. I nearly forgot. This is from 1964, from the summer of '64. Hey guys, it
was the
yeah,
summer
it's
of
Cox.
64.
Get your socks knocked by Cox. It's the Sensorites. So what happens in yeah?
Get your Cox rocks.
Cox rocks. So the Sensorites is a delightful story about sleeping astronauts who are found. They're not dead. They're narcoleptic astronauts floating in space, and it turns out they are being mind controlled by a mysterious people with beards that grow, hair that grows in reverse. The Sensorites. And the doctor and his companions, Barbara and Ian and Susan, they get mixed up in a power struggle happening within the ranks or the castes of the Sensorites. That's enough talk on that. Dan, why don't you start off this show here and find out what 7.9 million viewers watched. What? I don't know. That's so you can tell I have Wikipedia open, and I'm just the 7.9 million just jumped out at me. What'd you think? What'd you think of the Sensorites, Dan?
I would say it was a pretty good Hartnell story. As we've been jumping around, obviously, over the and between and among different doctors in different eras.
We weren't. I thought we were done.
We had a ribbon cutting ceremony for our Hartnell free zone that we just opened a new wing.
This house is clean, and like Dan's like, throw the third ball, and Dan's writing numbers on tennis balls.
Like ants.
Yeah, you can't get rid of them.
Came back stronger than ever. I mean, it was really one of my first notes I took on the story. It was kind of nice to see the original crew back together. I like seeing Barbara, Ian, Susan, and the doctor, first doctor together. It was a good story. I actually thought it was a good story. I thought it was paced too slowly, but it's typical for the era. Again, I will say this every time. Sing it along with me. It didn't need to be 6 parts, but that's okay. It kind of went down smooth, as they say, thanks to Cox. And there's a nice misdirect. You have these creepy Sensorites at the end of the first
right. You get the hand too a lot of times. You see them
against the window, and it's like this kind of almost like Twilight Zone sort of feel of like just outside the thing with it's a monster out there, and you realize that they're not the monsters necessarily. Well, some of them were, but anyway, yeah, it was a fine story. I don't know what to say about it, quite honestly. You have a group of scary looking to us aliens, but as they say, hey, maybe the humans are the ugly, scary ones, and we all look fantastic. I'm rambling, Eric. It was fine. What did you think?
I thought it was an okay story. There were certainly parts I liked about it. There are parts about it that are, first off, Babs has a great dress. I was happy to see her back. I enjoyed her dress. She's got like this medallion around her neck that I'm like, she's some kind of witchy Wiccan on the side, and she's doing rituals. So, thumbs up for Babs.
Well, that's why she was gone. That's why she was gone for 2
There's
episodes.
a lot of things that are very odd like that, where she's
cauldron.
just gone, and you're like, is she shooting something else? Is she on vacation? Who knows? But it seems like it's clearly something like that.
She was on vacation.
There's a lot of like dumb things in it too, like just with the story where they're all hanging around dead people like very early on, and Susan's like, I'm a little creeped out. We got to get out of here. And the doctor's like, why? I don't know. You're around 2 dead people, right? And Ian was awful handsy in this one. Ian, like in the first one, every character he's touching their back or he's touching the side of them, or doesn't matter gender, whether it's male or female or Sensorite. This guy's got his hands all over the place. There's also scenes where like a character will say like, oh, do you hear that whine? You hear that? You hear that? And then Ian's like, oh, do you mean that high pitch? Like, oh, yeah. That's what I mean. The obvious high pitch.
No, not that one.
What are you talking about?
No.
Right?
No, the other
And then
side.
Babs is counting at one point
Yeah.
to 5. She's like, let's count to 5. It sounds like our intro. And she's like, 1, 4, 5. What happened to 2 and 3? Everybody flubs their lines in this one. It is one of the
there's
most.
a lot of that in this one.
And again, it's not just Hartnell. It's
Flubtastic.
Susan. It's the Sensorites. I think Ian and Barbara are usually pretty much solid. But it felt like everyone else was just screwing everything up. The story, though, so all of the points that you said, I think are very accurate. Like it did, not that it dragged. It was just like a slow build that sort of works. And I feel like the first two or three episodes were much stronger because you had more of the sense of the mystery. I felt the dread, like you get the hands coming up, and then their crew member that went mad.
It's almost a haunted. It's almost like a haunted
where you think
house
like people are going to get
story
possessed, and then I did like the change too.
And it was
like the Sensorites.
They
had like they weren't just evil, like they were good. They were
evil at all,
they
honestly.
had again more dumb stuff like they discovered that the leader wears 2 sashes. The first in command wears 1 sash. And then they present the idea to the Sensorites that has never occurred to them. Oh, we do look alike. I could just take his sash and impersonate. Meanwhile, he's about a foot shorter than the other guy. Some of those guys are packed in those Sensorite outfits, and they are like bulging all over the place. Just like really big and
bulging in all
just
the
like
right places.
Dad bods on display. It's a whole thing.
Oh yeah. Well, 1964 famously was Dad Bod Summer.
And every summer since then, as far as I'm concerned.
But yeah, so
Yes,
right, so they do a
which was
switcheroo
dumb.
which was a very kind of right.
And it doesn't last long. It does not last long either. It's not like the doctor gets framed for murder, which they try to do, and then that's an episode of him in jail. They skip it.
No, it was literally 1 minute. It was 1 minute. Like, oh, he took it out of his coat. He wasn't wearing a coat. I meant cloak. He didn't have a cloak.
Right.
You got me.
But I did like the John stuff earlier. So John is I guess we should talk about the story, right? So
did he look like Steve Coogan?
Kinda, yeah, I could see that. He looked very
like
familiar.
He just looked like young.
He definitely looked very familiar.
He looked like Steve Coogan, and it just made me kind of giggle.
And he was like playing his character like a drunk guy at an office party, cornering his coworkers, especially in that first time that they meet him, and he just keeps and he's got something to say.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna protect you, and like that whole thing. He was like interesting, like trying to figure out like what his deal was and all of that stuff.
Right. And I like Carol as well. His crewmate / future wife.
All right, so the whole thing is, maybe I'm getting this wrong, maybe I'm not getting this right. I don't remember.
Who cares?
There's humans go there in ships, discover that there is money, there's spice melange on this planet, right? So then this becomes the Sensorites realize this and put these people in the brain control, and they get lost in the aqueduct.
You missed a second. You missed a beat. Though. It's not just that the humans found it that made them stop. It's that the one human who found it.
Well, not John. That's John, right? I'm trying to. The other guys, right? So the people that are playing war that all look like the Manson family. If every member of the Manson family was Charles Manson.
I think that was his dream. That was actually his dream.
Right. It was like multiplicity, but we're gonna cast Charles Manson in there.
But Manson.
Yeah.
Mansomplicity. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what point did I miss as far as like the original Mansonites?
It was he was so excited about it that he was broadcasting his avarice
because they can read your thoughts
and had no defense about and they were like overwhelmed by how he was going to do this and it was going to bring an end to their way of life.
They're justified.
Essentially, and I'm not one for the allegories. I'm pretty dumb and I just watch a story and be like, that was a good story. But like the colonialism aspect of this was just very strong. And I think from what I was reading is like kind of one of the first times they kind of invert that where the Aztecs was almost to some people's readings, almost pro-colonial, and that was the preceding story, I believe. This one was, very much the opposite. Anyway, sorry, I was interrupting. Eric, what else happened in the story that I didn't watch?
No, you were interrupting to correct the point that I missed. Because I was saying, so the humans, they broadcast their minds or whatever with their greed, and then they put them in like a holding status, right? But they're they're not mentally aware enough, so they somehow end up in the aqueduct. Where they live for years. But then the Sensorites think that they're monsters, but they don't know that they're quite human, but they do know that they're human.
Right, so it was a throwaway line. It was a throwaway line at the beginning, which was a very obvious one because it made no sense. They said that the humans they took off in their
right, and they fake an explosion or something.
They thought there were only two on the ship, but the other three must have been on board, and then the ship blew up. So
yeah, and then at the end, the guy kind of returns to it, and doesn't he say like they blew it up on purpose or something to do whatever? All right, so then that happens, and then they send more humans, right, to follow them to see what happened, and that's the John, our people, our and then they land here, and then everyone's
Gilligan,
cool,
Skipper,
except
Marianne.
for John, who's thinking about all the money that they can make, and so that they take him over, and then his brain can't handle it, and he goes crazy.
But that was
they didn't mean to, but because he
overwhelmed his brain.
But the same thing happened to the other people that were stuck in their war loop.
Yeah.
Right? Their brains sort of couldn't handle it. So anyway. Right. So that's it. So then they just keep putting these people to sleep.
But feeding them and taking care of them, like nice.
Because they don't want to kill them.
They couldn't let them go because they were afraid. But if
they'll
they let
tell
them go,
everyone
they're
that the
afraid
money's
that the humans would
minerals.
come back and take
so
take
that's
over the
fine.
planet and destroy.
But I
their way
did
of
like
life.
revisit it. Is the Sensorites are justified in a lot of ways for how they're acting. They're not just they're more of a layered character. They've got more depth to them.
It was self-defense that kind of.
And I like
some
their design.
Went a little bit
I like
further
the
than they
design,
intended.
even though it's weird. It's like the hair from the bottom going up, but it was like an interesting look. And then the thing that they're holding to their head, a little strange. A lot of stuff about telepathy. And we established the doctor says that he can sort of do telepathy, and then we see Susan can do it, and they make a thing at the end because I forget what they said. There's something about this frequency, and she can't do it again. But then the doctor says, I can keep working on it with you. So
we'll work on it.
Do you know? Did she ever use telepathy again? And the master kind of has some
Apparently
telepathic abilities in a way, mind control.
He's got the mind control stuff going on. So I guess it's not unheard of for Gallifreyans to have that. But in as far as I know, in the other stories with Susan, that's not referenced again. And yeah, just doesn't really happen. I mean, we see the doctor do crazy stuff. What was the one where was
it the montage when they're checking the samples? Because that was one of my favorite parts. It reminded me of the Wet Hot American Summer montage that any minute they were going to start shooting up. There's a part where the doctor is fumbling through his lines, but saying when he discovers that there's poison going into the water, and they're going to do a check at each step, 5 of them, and they write down in really big script each of the things, and there's a montage, and in between the montage is Ian sick on the poison, and then them doing test tube stuff or whatever. I was cracking up at that. Yeah,
Susan's
but go on.
shots.
That's not what you were going to say then.
No, I just saying about the mind control or the telepathic abilities. There was a story, I believe, it was a Sylvester McCoy story, and he's at Westminster, and when he doesn't quite run into the Queen, but he uses his spectacles to hypnotize one of the guards there. I don't know. It's a later story. So anyway, that was a dumb way of saying, I think it comes back sort of, but not from Susan with the mind control stuff. Besides, just
but there's some others.
It's not as though I've seen 100-something Doctor Who stories and can keep them all straight.
This is another one of those Doctor Who stories where they do plot points that are almost immediately resolved without much stakes. There's not enough time.
All right, so we had the setup for murder.
Yeah, setup for murder. When they do the kidnapping of what's her name? Of Carol, that
peril.
doesn't last very long. There's also a scene in that where they get the note, and
5
Susan's
minutes.
like, they're like, "Are you sure that's her handwriting?" And Susan's like, "Yeah." It's like, how does Susan know what her handwriting looks like? Let the other guy answer that question.
It was in an early draft of the script.
Oh, see, that makes so much more sense. Why did they cut that?
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's fine. But that thing happens, and then almost immediately they're rescuing her. Like within, I think it's the next scene.
Wait, because they recognized that the
Yes.
it was too fresh and it was smudged.
There's
so
a
it
lot of
couldn't
that
have
too.
been-
Even in the beginning with the heartbeat,
It's
they're
weird.
like, okay, these watches require motion, which is 24. Like, there's all these extra details that like doesn't really matter. Like, so we know that they died 24
Right, it was a
hours ago,
self-winding watch,
but then they're
which-
like, the bodies are still warm, so that doesn't make
Right.
sense. And then all of a sudden they come around. Like, you didn't need any of that.
Right.
Stuff. You just have them. You think they're dead. Oh, but they're still warm, and now all of a sudden they're alive. It was weird. They had that whole thing, but there's lots of little things like that, like the ink being dry, and I don't know, detective work. I guess is supposed to be happening.
I think another interesting thing about this with when we first meet the crew, and it's not much is made of it, but that the crew of the ship that's been in this slumber zone for a while, they're from several centuries in the future. So they're from the 24th.
Yeah, they say 24th, and they're from the 20th.
But they don't bat an eye at the fact that
No,
these are time
they don't care at
travelers.
all. Yeah.
Nothing. Not even like that's boring. Like, okay. Like, why even mention? Okay, sure. But that's like they're
Right.
freaking
And I
time
guess at the
travelers.
24th
Is that-
century, they're-
are they saying Earth in the
Is that
24th
common?
century people are
Right.
traveling through time?
Yeah, they blow
Is that a
blow
common
over that
thing?
piece
I
as
don't
if it's
think that-
nothing.
It seems like a really pretty big deal. From what I was seeing on the wiki about it, like this is the first story that's explicitly set in the future. Where I think the Dalek story before that was kind of retconned to be the future, and they've obviously gone to the past. with
And they do
accidents,
it.
whatever.
They have
This
in
is
the
first
opening
story
too. There's a
actually
nice
going.
recap of every adventure that they've had in season 1. Yeah.
They do
And
mention
then
a
we
bunch.
were here.
Yep. Yeah, and some other like adventures that weren't.
The
filmed.
doctor says
Like, they
something, and then it's like,
reference
but
other
that
things
was
in Tower of
before
London.
you were with us and all that. It's all fine.
Yeah. Which is nice. I mean, I like that they're building. So they're building up more of the mythology of the show and what's going on. There's that nice moment of Susan wistfully describing Gallifrey, the burnt orange sunsets and the trees with silver. Apparently, I don't recall this. Again, me reading, and for the fact that I don't have the memory anymore. But Tennant's doctor apparently quotes that almost
really?
word for word later.
Susan has more to
describing
do.
Gallifrey as
More.
well, which is
Susan's a
kind of
little
nice.
bit more interest, or has more business to do in this story. So I found her more interesting
Without-
than usual. She didn't. There wasn't a lot of screaming. She seemed to
totally
like.
agree.
Because she
That's what I
has
was gonna
her,
say.
she has an ability they require. She has purpose, and that was kind of interesting. Although, and I even like when she's ragging on
Yeah,
the
she's-
Sensorites. She's like doing that, imitating. It's kind of a little cruel, to be honest. So she's making fun of how they walk. I think, Susan. Well, the Sensorites. Okay,
That
let's talk
was
about the
probably
Sensorites,
worst
right? So
design.
they have a caste system.
Awesome masks.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
just
the
talk about
costuming is
the
great.
description.
Although it looks like
The
they're in
masks-
like
the
long
masks
underwear with like an
were
ass flap.
Great.
And some of the guys weren't in the best
So
of shape.
everything from the neck up, everything from the no body shame. That's fine. But from the neck up,
Yeah.
they looked great, and they were slightly different. They looked mostly the same, but they looked slightly different. They had the beards growing backwards. They had the crazy
Mm-hmm.
eyelashes that were eyebrows, but they were like slits. Hair all over there. But then from the neck down,
Yeah, they didn't have any more money.
ridiculous.
Just gray
the
sweatsuits.
stupidest pajamas with the big disc feet that you only
were
see really
unnecessary.
once or twice. And then it was never like it caused the crew, it caused the actors a lot of trouble walking around and shit. Like, why bother with that? Anyway, that
Well,
was but you were
just
gonna
to
say
stick with
something
that though,
more
you
substantial
mentioned
about them.
earlier, I think when you first started giving your opinions, Twilight Zone, and the mask seemed like something
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right out of an episode of Twilight Zone.
Very
And then, of
Twilight
course, the black
Zone.
and white helps speak to that. But it felt like that was like
It did help sell that.
a thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was going to say. What was I saying before that?
We were talking about the Sensorites themselves.
Oh, right. So
yeah.
they have a caste system that we establish where And it's just they don't like ever say that's wrong. I was expecting someone to say, "Let people be who they want to be." That doesn't come out. They're like, "Hey."
In fact, they justify
everybody's
by saying
cool.
everyone's happy because they're doing the
Right.
things
It sounds
they're
like
best
it's
suited for.
communism. Dan, this is propaganda. Anyway, so they establish that, and then they're sort of all equal in a way.
Yeah.
They say like, "Hey, everybody's happy with doing what we're doing," and then actually, Ian does do the nice line like, "Yeah, some people are happier than others." Anyway, my point is the first ruler, first leader, whatever his name is, first elder. He trusts everyone. Yes. He's like, I trust everyone. And then we have a series of events in which he's betrayed and his trust is compromised. And then at the end, I think they're like trying to get him to protect Susan. He's like, yeah, I'll put a Sensorite on it. And then they're like, can we trust them? He's like, yeah, I trust every Sensorite. What about all the people that literally... You have a guy that you just put in jail that's already escaped once. And then you find... I think he even realized at that point that his second in command was corrupt, right? I think... Or maybe that was before he knew that. But in any case, what are you, an idiot? What? Come on.
But he does say, like, their entire society is based on trust. So he doesn't really have any...
I know, but he's already been betrayed before that. It's not like... This is before the betrayal. It's like literally you just put a guy in jail and he escaped. You dummy.
So he won't do it again.
We're all
over
over the place. Like we stopped at some point. Maybe we'll start reviewing these things in order. But let's talk about the end. I loved when they're with the Mansons, the Manson family, of all Mansons, and and Barbara shows up. And they're like kind of lying to the military people. And Barbara comes up and Ian, I swear to God, I don't know if I hallucinated this, just looks at her and she's like, what's going on? He goes, be cool. Did he say be cool? Or did I make that up? I'm pretty sure he looks at her. He's like, be cool. Like they're buying
a be cool attitude.
Yeah, they're buying PCP or something in a basement apartment. But that whole thing was also like, kind of interesting, but also like then they trick them and then they all get arrested and it's like they didn't even put up a fight.
Even that ruse
did not last long. No, they walk upstairs and it's over.
Of like, yeah, no, we're here to welcome you and like the war's over and you guys won. You destroyed all of them.
And the ending is so strange. It ends with the doctor berating Ian and saying like, I'm dropping you off, and there's no smile.
I'm gonna take you home.
Like it's not like it's a wink and then it's over.
Yeah, it wasn't even Barbara being like,
oh, title that doctor, came up.
Susan being like,
oh,
silly.
okay,
no.
Jesus.
Yeah. The title came up and it said, next episode.
Yeah, Death to Ian. Which, Reign of Terror. I don't know. But I like the old way of doing individual titles for each part of the story. I wish they still did that. I guess they do that in the new show. When you have two parts, it's individually titled.
Well, right. But they do very, very seldom do they do it in two-parters. I know. They don't do six-parters.
I wish the classic show had kept that up all the way through, because it gives like a little bit of, uniqueness to each story, and
sets the tone for what's happening next.
Exactly. Yeah. Although they don't always make sense. Like the second story of this was called like the Unwilling Warriors or something about Unwilling Warriors. But then I was like, why? I don't know.
Oh, well, I guess the Sensorites were.
I guess, but nothing real. I kept waiting for something. They mentioned the warrior class, but I don't know.
Well, here's an interesting thing, because this is typically where they would go with a story like this. It wasn't the warrior class that was being the ones like, oh, we need to stop the humans, and we need to whatever.
No,
it wasn't
the
them.
Aristocracy,
it was a functionary,
I guess,
the city controller, like
the under elder.
Yeah, just the guy responsible for keeping the city safe, as opposed to like the warriors being like, the only thing I know how to do is fight. Just interesting that they did something a little bit different there.
It was.
I don't know. They have a disintegrating room. They have a room for disintegrating things, which was nice. But it's not often used anymore. Other than that's the only other room in the entire place.
So you knew about Barbara, clearly a vacation. I wish they didn't do that, because it does like it just doesn't make any sense in the story. Like, she's just in the spaceship, and they have to split up, and then they're like, spend all this time
just
going,
hanging out
can't
in
we
the
bring
spaceship
her
for a
back?
while.
Now's not a good time to ask. Like, even like cut that line out. Like, you don't have to keep.
Right.
I guess they're like worried the audience is going to be wondering where Barbara is, and just letting us know that she's still in the story. But
Safe,
I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, though, I wonder if Susan had much more to do because there's
maybe.
one fewer companion to have to write in. So, yeah, I mean, it was a trade-off. Hey,
She does.
deserves
You
a vacation.
forget, like,
But yeah, it's strange. It is strange to do that.
you
in the middle
forget
of
like
a story.
what because this is the first season, so they're establishing everything. But the dynamic is so much different in these early ones, where Ian really is the action hero that's doing a lot of this stuff. It's not just focused on the doctor solving every problem, and they all feel much more equal. And it's even even more almost Ian's show. It feels like it at some times, and how that changes over time.
Well, even to the point, I agree. But even to the point where Ian is
Yeah,
the
that
damsel in
happens
distress
with the poisoning
in
and
this story.
yeah.
So, like, if Barbara, I suspect if Barbara had been in the entire story, she would have been the one that drank the water and was dying, and the stakes were high to save her. But no, Ian's the one that it happened to. But this was another thing, like you were mentioning before, like these little plot threads that get resolved so quickly, and so obviously they're sitting there
With the water.
The prime elder or whatever he is gives them water, but this is the crystal.
Yeah,
water,
he's like, no,
crystal
give me the
meth
good
that
shit.
Only,
Yeah.
only the elders get to. But I'm so thirsty, I'll just drink the regular water first. And he's the only one that does that. And he gets sick, and it
Yes,
takes them.
They
way
have to
too long
run
to
through
figure out that that's what
multiple
happened.
things. Well, I had the exit. I also had the exit. I'm fine. And then they even go through a thing about, okay, how many people got sick from the water last year? 1 out of 10. And how many this year? 2 out of, like, there's all this extra data that's like,
Right.
we don't need to. We could do another pass. The script could have went through another pass. We could have cut some dialogue out, but I guess they needed 6 parts, and that's what we got to deal with.
That's how you
It's
get
all
it.
fine though. Like,
Add
it's
a
a
whole bunch of
fine
extra stuff in.
story,
It was a fine
right?
story.
It was a interesting enemy.
Fine story, pretty well done. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the first two, you found the first two.
I liked them all. I felt
episodes to
like
be
I
stronger.
thought the tension, because a lot of the first, especially the first episode, is a lot of just single hand doing stuff. And I think at that point you realize that single hand is John, right? Doing whatever John's doing. Or is it the Sensorites? I don't know. I don't know who it was.
Well, because there were gloved hands doing things. They took the
Yeah,
lock
that was
off
the
of TARDIS,
Sensorites
which
that
is
they
more
took,
than
and they're
just a
so
lock.
amazed
It's-
by it. But some of the
That's the
stuff when
Sensorites.
we're in with, because Barbara and Susan, like, they go and then
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah,
see,
yeah, with-
yeah.
Screws up the locks.
So, like,
they can't get out. Yeah.
There's like someone's on the
always done.
ship. You don't know who it is. You only know John, but you don't. All of that stuff I liked a lot. When it got into the politics of the Sensorites, I liked that too. But I felt like I liked how
very
the
different.
story was structured and paced in the earlier ones a little bit more.
Well, I liked it how it's structured. It's the pacing in the first two that I actually had most of the problem with. There was just long stretches of Ian and was it Ian and Susan or Ian and Barbara? Well, anyway, of our
Yep.
faithful companions just wandering through what seems like a very small ship. There were only a couple of corridors, but just long shots of them doing this. I mean, there's a moment where they run into what was his name? Charlie?
Who?
No,
John?
Chad? Chuck?
Yeah.
John.
I don't know.
Why did I think Charlie? All right, John. Yes, John is back there, and he's staggering around like he's like a drunk at a party, and they're literally 2 steps away from him, off to the side, and he just doesn't see them at all.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
keeps
yeah.
wandering around. I mean, just like it just was a little, and the Sensorites menacing them, but actually not at all.
And
Like,
we see
it
the
was a pretty
Sensorites
good
almost as
misdirect
like
that these really
glowing
creepy
dots,
looking-
right? When they see them on the, when you first look out at this is a great reveal of the Sensorites. I think it's the end of the first episode, where you see like glowing stars or things floating, and then all of a sudden the Sensorite comes from the bottom of the screen up.
Comes up out of the
What
window.
were the glowing
Yeah.
thing? Was that them traveling back and forth, or?
I honestly don't even recall seeing that.
But I
that's
loved
where-
how the one guy just comes up from the bottom of the thing and is just staring dead on. At one point, Crazy John.
I mean, so I like that
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of misdirect.
yeah.
The misdirect that they were like these horrible, scary aliens that were there to kill them, but as they're wandering around, like just following them through the corridors, they don't ever lunge at them. And Barbara even mentions that. Did they attack you? Well, no. I thought
It was fine. It's all fine. I don't know. Do you have anything else at this thing? I was thinking of what else I had on my notes here. Stealing someone's sash, that was kind of dumb. I like John at one point does look in the camera, and I think he says he's a good man. Like, who are you talking to? Yeah.
He did turn directly to the camera. I have it right here, right to camera. The elder, he is a good man. Why? Why did you? Okay.
Yeah, because like he's got the telepathic ability. Somehow, you can read all of the thoughts of someone when it's fine. Go on. What were you gonna say?
Well, because the veil between his brain parts
It's
was
like an eyelid.
The thing with
Yeah, like a cat's
it's
eye.
like an eyelid that they don't have. They just have fur. They have fur eyes. The Sensorites' kryptonites
Darkness
is darkness and loud sounds, and it was.
It was very silly.
So
It was very silly.
Maybe it was was it the second episode? Maybe that they just deduce. The doctor just deduces that they're going to be afraid of the dark because they can't.
He starts talking about the
they're
cat
very,
metaphor.
not able to see their eye. The way their eyes dilate, they do the whole cat metaphor. And then whenever they do turn off the lights, they're immediately just like bumbling around and like in panic, and it's just. It doesn't make any sense. And then every time anyone talks to them too loud, the way that they cower from it, it's a good thing they weren't really the enemy in the story, because they were kind of silly in that way.
And then they make a
know.
point of saying like how
felt
smart
like
the doctor is because he
pick
figured
one.
out that thing. It was like no one else turned a light off by accident or like it was against the wall and
He's so clever that his way of trying to cure
Salt!
Ian was to
Yeah,
give him
give me
salt water.
I-
I've done everything I can. I've given him salt water.
That was my favorite part because he was like, I'm all out of options. I gave him salt and I gave him water.
What else could we possibly do? I guess let him die.
The poisoning and the nightshade and all of that.
was
Like,
weird.
I don't know. It was also, but like that was their main plan. The humans, like they were just gonna slowly poison them and hope for the best.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and hope for the best. Just switching it around, putting deadly.
It would have been
nightshade,
better if you had
which
completely
apparently just
removed the
grows up
humans,
and-
right, and had the evil Sensorites poisoning their own people for their own power, for the greater good or whatever, like that. Like, why have the
Sure.
Manson family down there?
Right.
It's fine. It's all fine.
So, yeah, right. So
Their hair grows from their chin upward, and that was enough for me. Yeah.
That's all that you really need.
I just loved how they're clearly taller. They're not the same height, and yet the sash was going to fool all of them. And no one in the history of sash wearing had said, like, what if I wore that? Then I could be in charge. His voice is different, for one thing.
The voice is different. Also, they have telepathy and can read each other's brains. So it really wouldn't have gone that far. Hey,
And then they have the whole thing where the doctor gets a new cloak, and then they have to like have a fashion show, and all of that is just to get around the thing that, you know, the accusation of him, and they make that quip about. I had to look up the guy. There's some English guy known for fashion, Beau Brummel or whatever. He's like, Beau Brummel said I was, and I was like, that's got to be somebody that's some fashion icon from the 1800s.
Yeah, I had to look that up as well. A dandy and arbiter of taste.
Yep.
From back in the day.
It was fine. It
Which
was
is code
fine.
for Figala.
It was fine. I don't know, man. I mean, do you have anything else with this?
But how did you feel about it? Was
It's
it okay?
fine. I don't know. It's like the doctor Hartnell is such a hard nut to crack because sometimes he's great and then sometimes he's just so mad at everybody. Especially like we talked about the end where he just gets so mad at Ian and he's just like we're going home. And it's hard to like, you know, cuz he's a prickly character. That's his personality. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It felt like it worked more often than not maybe in this one. I didn't find him too, but then, at the end, he's too ordinary. Ordinary? Dan's cut out. Ornery.
Ornery?
Ornery.
Ornery.
Horny.
Just want to do this for the rest of the show?
Keep saying the words. I don't know. I got nothing else. What else do you got, Dan? Like when the doctor looks at that circle on the TARDIS and he says it means a bunch of things. It's like, how are you getting any of that from looking at a circle? Wait, it was like in the very beginning. The story starts out where they don't know where they are, and then they're like, we're either on something or in something, I think Barbara says. And then the doctor just points to this sphere, or like it looks like a centipede roller ball, and just points at it, and it's like, this means, and then he says a bunch of stuff. Like, it's like, okay, how are you getting all of that from? This thing says everything has stopped or something. He says something like that. It's fine. It was a dumb little observation. Go on. Move on. Nothing to see here.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciated it. I have nothing else to say about this one. I think we covered it all. And because we thought we were recording last week, as we typically would, I did ask folks on the Twitter machine if you guys had any thoughts about this story. And
what the people say.
Did. So you want to just jump? Why don't we jump into that, Eric? So, folks, we got a friend, Misfit Scully, saying, I recently enjoyed this story, which can be a little slow, but it's still a good yarn. The Sensorites with the flippity-floppity feet are imaginative. I always have to remember it is 1964. Ray Cusack designed work on the spaceship and city made the story look great. Yeah, the production design on both on the ship and then which had one distinct look, and then on the planet had another distinct look. It felt very... distinct. I like that. Misfit Scully goes on to say, a simple story that didn't need to be 6 episodes. Hallelujah. Totally agree. I didn't miss Babs while Jax Hill was away while she was on vacation. Nice to see Susan being more alien. Pity this was not used again. This was a reason why Carol Ann Ford left the series early, left in season 2. And Mr. Scully goes on to say, you asked where listeners are from? I am in the UK.
Thank you for telling us.
Hello to the UK. Hope things are going well there. So thank you, Mr. Scully. That was great. The account Doctor Who Novels replies, I love this one. It's famous for its fluffs. You called that one. A lot of fluffing everywhere. But it's a story about philosophical aliens who are scared of the dark and how the true enemy was humanity.
Well, humanity and the other guy.
A much deeper story than the Daleks.
Although the other guy was in a way justified. You could say, he was justified because he was in a way right, because the humans will destroy everything.
Well, but it was still But he did it in a way that, it's for the greater good, ends justify the means sort of way, which is, if pop culture has taught me anything, is apparently not a good thing. I don't know. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Doctor Who Novels for that. Sheep Horse says, not the greatest, but I love seeing the original team at their best. Hey, me too. The first episode is solid. Peak First Doctor. And we do talk about Hartnell kind of like figuring out who the Doctor is over the first season or two. This was a pretty good representation of who the Doctor becomes, I think. He's not so ornery and irascible. He's much more trying to figure things out, very cooperative, almost diplomatic in a lot of ways, which was nice. So I like that. Thank you, Sheephorse. Big Orange Mikey says... Okay. It's slow moving, but it's got some bright spots. The shot that goes from the TARDIS interior through the doors and into the spaceship is nicely done. So this is as they landed inside of something. I think it's one of maybe the first shot that they do like that, where you transition between. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Michael. Francis A. Shales says, it's meant to be watched 1 episode per week on late afternoons on Saturday for preference. Definitely not one.
Yeah, that's the way I did it. I watched the whole
Eric,
thing
how did you
yesterday.
Watch this one?
Even though I had all this time, I was like, well, I didn't have time. That was the problem.
You always have to wait.
It was hard.
You want to keep it fresh in the noggin. You got to keep it fresh. I watched it over 2 days. It was fine doing it that way, but yeah, that's a lot. But thank you, Francis, for that. Long Scarf
nice.
Publications.
Nice title, nice
says,
name.
I love It is a nice name.
Good.
I love everything about this. Period. Exclamation point. That's it. Cool. Glad you liked it. I hope you like our podcast review of it as well.
Yeah, Kingsley.
Alan Kingsley says this didn't need to be 6 parts. When does it ever? In parentheses. But I appreciate when Doctor Who can create creatures like the Sensorites who are creepy looking, but not inherently
Yeah, I agree.
evil.
Do we see the Sensorites
also-
again in any form in New Who or Old Who?
Well,
On TV.
they are definitely referenced. No, they are definitely referenced in the Ood. The Ood are direct kind of references to the Sensorites, and in fact, it is said somewhere. I don't remember where I read this. If it was like a Russell T Davies commentary track or something like that, that the Ood sphere and the Sensorite sphere are actually in the same system. So we have these telepathic aliens who look monstrous. They have these dangly things that they use
I
to
immediately thought of the
communicate,
Ood,
but
but
they're also not evil. So yeah, so that's the only, as far as I know, kind of direct reference to it. Yep. So Alan goes on to say, I also like sidelining Ian a bit to let the others shine. I'm assuming while he's sick and kind of out of it a little bit, which is cool. And who doesn't enjoy a good story about molybdenum?
Molybdenum.
I mean, that is one of the best kind of tropes. Molybdenum.
Da 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 da.
Thank you, Alan, for
Da
that.
da da da. That works.
Molybdenum. Bum, ba, da, da.
Molybdenum. Boom.
Let's see. TARDIS Who 1962 says it's a bit of a slow story with a very quick ending.
Yeah.
That happens
Yeah,
a
like,
lot. doesn't it?
uh-oh,
You have a
no more
6-parter,
time.
Instead of kind of spacing it out over 6 parts, we've got 5 minutes left. Let's wrap it up, folks. Astute observation. James Morris says, always enjoyed this one. There was something strangely off-putting about the Sensorites' masks other than the otherwise cheap but comfy costume design. That design was clearly revisited for the Ood in New Who, together with Susan's early description of Gallifrey. Very good. Yes, we did reference that as well, so thank you for bringing that up. And 60-second Who says, yes, it's slow, but sometimes slow is good. The whole, quote, we rely on clothes to tell each other apart when no 2 Sensorites look the same. It's one of the few stories where cookie-cutter monsters were actually vital to the plot, and they didn't do it. Right. If they had actually all looked exactly the same, except for the sashes, it would have sold it a little bit better. But to which Francis A. Shales replies, they're virtually blind, so give them a break.
Maybe that's why
So
they
maybe
can't tell that
really
they
couldn't
sound
see
different,
apart.
look different, different heights, different weights, different bulges.
Different brains, in all the right places. Everyone, thank you so much for getting to us on Twitter. When we call, you reply, and we really enjoy that. So thank you so much for letting us hear. If you don't use the Twitters or would prefer not to, you can also reach us at what we call
the email.
And that is the old Doctor Who show at gmail.com. We have a reply from our friend Paul Paranoid, who says, wow, after 7 years, 131 episodes, what a story to go out on. Actually, he says, oh crap, I've actually never seen this one. Paul, well, now you can feel like you've seen it because we've given
you get all the important bits.
You got all the juicy good stuffs going on there. Eric, what did
I just sent you a picture of Chewbacca's family is what I sent you.
Is that a photograph of
the
framed
of course.
photo that you have by your nightstand?
From the Star Wars holiday special. I was thinking of I had that in my notes because the hair growing from the bottom reminded me of something and I couldn't remember. It felt like a Star Wars creature. And then I was like, was it one of the Wookiees from the Halloween?
Oh, yeah.
So I had that picture to send you. But there is something that it reminds me of, and I can't think of it.
Maybe something from the cantina.
Yeah, the cantina.
From
I think it's one of the
Hope.
creatures from the cantina.
It's probably cantina. Sorry, a cantina's is a vessel to drink from. Yeah, maybe that's it. But no, I definitely said it. But for me, like we said earlier, it definitely feels like Twilight Zone to me in terms of the design. And the black and white makes it kind of sound. Eric,
that's all of it, man. That's all of it. We don't got
got.
anything else. I looked
That's
for
it.
reviews too while you were reading those nice that nice feedback from people, and we don't have any reviews, so we're done. Except we're not done because we have to finish this show. We've added new episodes that you probably figured out now because we just did the Sensorites, which means we're doing another new one that we hadn't planned for, the Dominators. So we're going to do a little Patrick Troughton. A 5-parter, so not 6-part, 5 parts.
Patty Trout.
That's a positive.
It'll be nice, I think, to
and
go back
it's
to
Zoe.
again.
So I like Zoe and Jamie, which we like. So we'll.
Zoe Saldana.
I know nothing about it. That's all I know is it's 5 parts. Jamie and Zoe and Patrick Troughton. I am taking our listeners at assuming they're not leading us down a story that has missing episodes, right? There's no audio component or PowerPoint.
Yeah, we are being very trusting
so I'm assuming
here.
it's all there.
If you go and want to see the updates, you can go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com/schedule. It will redirect you to the page that actually has them all listed out there. You know the drill by now. We have them all linked if you want to go back. Our podcast feed only has the most recent 100 episodes. If you want to go back further than that, you can listen to them all on the show page for each one. In addition, the last, 100 or so stories that we reviewed have a full GIF gallery there.
They do.
More than the GIFs that we put on the on Twitter and on Instagram, which is also TODW Show. You can go there if you want to see more GIFs. I will say thank you for the World Enough in Time podcast who used one of our GIFs as a promo thing, which was really great. From they were doing, I think, the Leisure Heave, Heisure Live. They did Heisure Live, and they used one of our GIFs, which was very nice. So yeah, use them.
That's what they're there for.
It's public domain. Use them for everything.
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think that's it, Eric.
I think we're
What
good.
else?
I have now. I got to
else
go start sucking pipes off the side of my house.
It's Sunday.
And
what
my
else are you gonna do but
HV
suck
vac
pipes?
or wet dry vac that I have is like a piece of crap. It doesn't have a lot of suck. It's all old. So I got to go buy a new one. I don't have the money for that. Oh man, buy a couple copies of Goblin just so I could pay for a new wet dry vac. Right? It's fine. Yeah, so I'll be outside.
I think that's how that works.
If you're looking for me, look for a tall fella sucking off a pipe with the side of his house.
Not that guy. The
Oh,
other guy.
that's Steve. He comes on.
So many of you.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. Should we put an end to this one? Can we put this one down?
Yeah. Let's
Thank
put a
you
bullet
for
in it.
listening, and
We did it,
enjoy the
everybody.
rest of your.
And thanks for bearing with us with that extra week.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
What?
So are we going to do the next one
Yeah.
on the regular date though? So in 2 weeks
Oh.
we'll do the next one.
Are we doing that? I don't know. We can do
Right.
that, but I don't
Yeah.
care. No. Did you want to do it in 2 weeks?
Get back on. Let's get back on the regular.
Oh,
schedule.
it's
We
gonna
were
mess
trying
up
to
the
time it
timing?
so that it would end. The timeline
Okay,
will get
fine.
timey-wimey.
Yeah. So in 2 weeks,
We'll
we
figure
have
that
5
out for sure.
episodes
We'll
to
let you know.
watch.
You'll find out.
In 2 weeks.
Don't worry, we'll watch them all in the last.
And then
24
Dan
hours
will send
before
another
we record,
email
just like always.
pushing this. No, we will
Pushing
try
it
for
back
2 weeks,
another
and
week.
then we're back to 3 weeks. Okay, I could do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get back in your hearts again.
All right.
Don't worry.
Have
right,
a
everybody.
great everything.
Have a great everything,
Yeah.
and we'll talk
Peace.
to you real soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Molybdenum. Molybdenum. Molybdenum.